I never thought I'd be the one to tear my family apart, but here we are. My name's not important, but let's call me Kate. I'm 27, engaged to a man named George, and my older brother David is married to a woman named Ella. Sounds simple, right? It's not, because before Ella married my brother, she dated George. And when George proposed to me, Ella lost her mind. Let me back up. 4 years ago, George was a mess. He was 34 then, partying hard, doing drugs, not reliable at all. He dated Ella for about 6 months. She wanted marriage and kids. He didn't. It ended badly. She couldn't make him settle down. Then she met my brother David maybe a month later, and they got married within 7 months. I'm not exaggerating. From breakup to marriage in just over a year. I remember thinking at the time, wow, they moved fast. But I didn't know about George then. I didn't know anything. 2 years ago, I met George at a mutual friend's barbecue. We hit it off immediately. He was funny, charming, and he seemed really together. I didn't know he was Ella's ex. I swear, nobody told me. And honestly, why would they? David and Ella had been married for over a year by then. I thought George was just some guy I clicked with. But when he started showing interest in me, something shifted in him. He quit drinking cold turkey. He stopped doing drugs. He started going to therapy. He told me later that I made him want to be better, that he saw in me something worth changing for, and I believed him. I was there through his whole healing journey, the tough nights, the cravings, the crying in therapy. I saw him transform. We fell in love for real. It was healthy, honest, the most solid relationship I've ever had. Then Ella found out. I don't know how she figured it out. Maybe someone in my family mentioned I was seeing someone. But the moment she knew it was George, she flipped. She came at me like I'd stolen something from her. She told everyone in my family that George was grooming me because I was 25 and he was 36. She said he was abusing me. She said he was trying to turn me into an addict. She said I was being manipulated. None of it was true, but she said it loud and often. She said it at family dinners, at my parents' house, in group texts. She said it so much that my mother started crying, asking if I was safe. I tried to explain. George had been sober for over a year by then. He had a therapist. He had a job, he was good to me, but Ella didn't care about facts. She was bitter. She couldn't handle that he had changed for me when he wouldn't change for her. That's what it came down to. She wanted to be the one who fixed him, and she failed. So she decided to destroy what he and I had. My brother David was stuck in the middle. He loved Ella and he loved me, but he believed her. He took her side. He told me I was making a mistake. He said George was bad news. He said I was young and naive. I told him I was a grown adult, but he wouldn't listen. Ella had him convinced. The worst part was the proposal. George proposed to me 6 months ago on our 2-year anniversary. He did it at a quiet restaurant, just the two of us. He got down on one knee and said he wanted to spend his life with me. I said yes, it was perfect. I posted a photo on Instagram, me with the ring, him smiling. That's when Ella saw it. She went ballistic. She called my mother screaming. She said George was only proposing to get back at her. She said he was using me to hurt her. She said I was a pawn. I was so angry I couldn't see straight. I called her myself and told her to back off. She said, "You'll never have a happy marriage with him. He'll leave you like he left me. You're a fool." I hung up. Then she started the campaign again, but this time she added new lies. She claimed George had stolen money from her when they dated. She claimed he had hit her. She claimed she had a restraining order. None of it was true. I checked. I even asked George directly. He showed me his record clean. He showed me his old phone messages. No threats, no violence, no theft. Just a breakup where he said he wasn't ready to commit, that's it. My parents called a family meeting. They asked me to come alone. George wasn't invited. They sat me down in their living room, my mom, dad, David, and Ella. Ella had been crying, pretending to be the victim. My dad looked at me and said, "Kate, we love you, but we think you need to step back and think about this. George is not good for you. Ella has told us things that worry us." I asked what things. Ella started crying harder and said, "I just don't want you to get hurt the way I was." I said, "You were dating him for 6 months 4 years ago. He's a different person now." She said, "People don't change." I looked at David. I said, "Do you really believe her over me?" He looked down. He said, "I have to believe my wife." That was the moment I knew. My brother had chosen her side without even questioning it. My parents were leaning that way too. They asked me to postpone the engagement. I said no. They asked me to at least not bring George to Thanksgiving. I said no again. Ella stood up and said, "If you marry him, you're not welcome in this family." My mom gasped. My dad didn't say anything. I sat there for a second, then I looked at her and said, "You don't get to decide that. This is my family." But she had already decided. She had poisoned them all. That was 3 weeks ago. I haven't spoken to my brother since. My mom calls me every few days, crying, asking me to come to dinner without George. I tell her I'm not coming if Ella is there. She says I'm being stubborn. I say I'm protecting my relationship. George is the best thing that ever happened to me, and I refuse to let Ella ruin it, but it's tearing me apart. I love my family. I love my brother. I just don't know how to fix this when they think I'm the one who broke it. I thought that once George proposed, things would calm down. Instead, they exploded. Now I'm wondering if I'll ever see my family whole again without giving George up. And I won't do that, I can't. So here I am, stuck between the man I love and the family I grew up with. And I don't know which side will win. The family meeting didn't end with a resolution. It ended with my mom crying, my dad silent, and my brother refusing to look at me. Ella left with a satisfied smirk that I'll never forget. I walked out of their house that night feeling like I'd been exiled. George was waiting for me in the car. He asked how it went. I just shook my head. He held my hand and said, "We'll get through this." I wanted to believe him, but I also knew that my family might never accept him, and that thought hurt more than any lie Ella could tell. A few days later, my brother David called me. He sounded tired. He said, "Kate, I need you to hear me out." I said, "I'm listening." He told me that Ella had been crying nonstop. She was scared I'd get hurt. She was scared George would relapse. He said, "I know you love him." "But I love her. I have to support my wife." I said, "Even when she's lying." He paused. Then he said, "What if she's not lying? What if you're just blinded by love?" I hung up. I couldn't have that conversation again. That was when I decided I needed to protect my peace. I muted my family group chat. I stopped answering calls from my mom unless she promised not to bring up George. She couldn't promise, so I stopped answering. It's been 2 weeks since I last spoke to my parents. George and I are still engaged. We're planning a small wedding for next spring, just us and a few friends. My family won't be there. I've accepted that, but it still stings. I think about my brother every day. He used to be my best friend. Now he's a stranger who believes his wife's lies. I don't know if time will fix that. I don't know if anything will. All I know is that I'm not giving up George. He's my future. And if my family can't see that, then maybe they never really saw me. Let me tell you about a different kind of drama. The kind that starts with a shower and ends with cops at your door. My name's not important, but let's call me Jenna. I'm 21 and I live in a 2-bedroom flat with my roommate Sarah. She's 22. We've lived together for about a year. It was fine at first, friendly, respectful, split rent and bills evenly. I thought I had a decent roommate situation. Then she started dating this guy named Mike. Mike is 24. He works some kind of odd job. I never really knew what. At first, he was around once or twice a week. No big deal. But within a month, he was sleeping over 5 or 6 nights a week. Sometimes he'd stay for a full week straight. He wasn't on the lease. He didn't pay rent. He didn't bring groceries. He didn't contribute to anything, not a single dollar. I didn't say anything at first because I didn't want to start drama. I figured it would settle down. It didn't. The thing that finally got to me was the shower. Mike showered all the time, twice a day minimum. Sometimes 3 times. And every single time, he used my stuff. My shampoo, my conditioner, my face wash, my razor, even my deodorant. I noticed because I could smell my own shampoo on him when he walked past. I didn't say anything the first few times, thinking maybe Sarah let him borrow something. But it kept happening. I moved all my toiletries into my room. I started carrying them to the bathroom and back like I was at a campsite. It was annoying, but I didn't want to cause a fight. Then I finally brought it up to Sarah. I said, "Hey, can you ask Mike to stop using my stuff? I've been keeping it in my room, but it's a pain." She just shrugged and said he probably didn't realize. She didn't do anything about it. A week later, I found my razor in the shower again, wet. That was the last straw. I walked into the living room where Sarah and Mike were watching TV. I said, "Mike, I need you to stop using my personal stuff. It's not okay." He looked at me with this blank face and said, "Oh, sorry, I didn't think it was a big deal." I said, "It is, please use your own." Sarah rolled her eyes. Mike just nodded, but he didn't stop. He kept using my shampoo and deodorant. I'd find my razor in the shower every few days. I started keeping everything locked in my room, even my towel. That meant I had to remember to bring it all with me every time I showered. It was exhausting. I sat Sarah down and told her I wasn't comfortable with him showering here constantly, especially since he doesn't live here, doesn't contribute, and uses my stuff. I said I'd feel different if he at least bought his own products or chipped in for utilities. She got defensive. She said, "He's my boyfriend. He's welcome here. You're being controlling." I said, "I'm not controlling. I'm asking for basic respect." She said, "You're just jealous because you're single." That stung, but I didn't let it show. I said, "That has nothing to do with it. This is about boundaries." The next day, Mike tried to smooth things over. He came to me and said, "Hey, I'm sorry about the shower stuff. I'll buy my own things, and I can chip in for the water bill if that helps." He offered to pay $20 a month. I thought, okay, that's something. I agreed, but that $20 never showed up, not once. Sarah said he forgot. I said he forgot 3 times in a row. She got mad again. Then things got weirder. I started noticing people coming to the apartment at strange hours, late at night around midnight, knocking in a pattern. Mike would open the door, talk to someone for a minute, and close it. I asked Sarah about it. She said it was his friends, but I saw one of them hand him cash. I'm not stupid. I knew what that looked like. I started paying closer attention. I found a small plastic bag in the trash in the bathroom. It had white residue. My stomach dropped. I texted Sarah, "What is this?" She didn't answer. Later that night, she came to my room and said, "Look, Mike has some stuff going on. He's not a bad person. He's just trying to get by." I said, "Is he dealing drugs in our apartment?" She didn't deny it. She said, "It's just temporary. He'll stop soon." I said, "No, this is my home too. I'm not going to jail for you or him." That's when I told her he wasn't allowed in the apartment anymore. She lost it. She said I was overreacting. She said I was trying to control her relationship. She said if he couldn't come over, she would move out. I said, "Fine, then find a new place." She stormed off. 3 days later, I came home from work and found the front door unlocked. I walked in and saw Mike in the living room. Sarah wasn't home. He was sitting on the couch and there was a small scale on the coffee table. I said, "What are you doing? Get out." He stood up and said, "Relax, I'm just leaving." He grabbed a backpack and walked out, but he left the scale. I took a picture. I also noticed my favorite hoodie was missing from my room. I texted Sarah, "Did Mike take my hoodie?" She replied, "He borrowed it. I'll get it back." I said, no, he's not allowed here, I'm changing the locks. I talked to the landlord the next day, I explained the situation. He agreed to change the lock on my door and told Sarah she needed to find a new roommate or move out. Sarah was furious. She said I ruined everything. I said, no, you and your boyfriend ruined it by using my stuff and dealing drugs in my home. It's been a month now. Sarah moved out last week. She's living with Mike somewhere. I don't know where. Part of me worries about her, but I also know I did what I had to do. I got a new roommate, a quiet girl who works at a library. No drama. No drugs, no stolen hoodies. The weirdest part, I found my hoodie in a donation bin 3 blocks away. I guess he didn't want it anymore. I took it home, washed it, and wore it yesterday. It felt good to have something back that was mine, but that wasn't the end of it. Let me circle back to my family drama because it didn't stay quiet for long. So after that phone call with David where he said I was blinded by love, I went no contact with him and my parents for about 2 weeks. George and I kept planning our spring wedding. We had a small venue booked, a little chapel by the lake. I was excited, but I also felt like I was drowning in grief. I missed my brother. I missed my mom. I missed the idea of a family that supported me. Then 2 weeks later, my mom called me from a number I didn't recognize. She had borrowed her friend's phone. I answered because I thought it might be work. When I heard her voice, my heart jumped. She said, "Sweetheart, please don't hang up. I need to tell you something." I held my breath. She said, "Ella got herself banned from our family." I sat down on the edge of my bed. What happened? She told me the whole story. Apparently, after David stopped talking to me, Ella got bolder. She started telling my cousins that George was controlling me, that he had a history of violence, that he was dangerous. She even told my aunt that George had once threatened her when they dated. None of it was true. My aunt called my mom worried. My mom said she started digging. She asked David about it. David defended Ella at first, but then he admitted he had never seen any of that behavior from George. He said he just believed his wife because she was his wife. That wasn't enough for my mom. She called Ella out directly at a family dinner. It was Thanksgiving. I wasn't there, but my mom relayed every detail. She said, "Ella, we need to talk about the things you've been saying about George." Ella got defensive. She said, "I'm just looking out for your daughter. He's a drug addict." My mom said, "He's been sober for 2 years. You're lying." Ella started crying, said my mom was attacking her. David stood up and said, "Mom, stop. She's my wife." My mom looked at him and said, "And she's lying about your sister's fiancé. I have proof." My mom had talked to George's old sponsor. He confirmed George had been clean for 2 years, that he went to meetings, that he had changed. She also found out that Ella had been spreading rumors about other people in the past. Her own sister had told my mom that Ella had done the same thing to her ex-husband. My mom put it all on the table. She said, "Ella, you are not welcome in this family until you apologize and stop your smear campaign." David tried to defend her again, but my dad spoke up for the first time in weeks. He said, "David, your wife has been lying. That's not okay. You need to decide if you want to stand with her or with your sister." David looked at my mom, then at my dad, then at Ella. Ella stood up, grabbed her purse, and said, "I'm leaving, and if you choose that girl over me, you'll lose your wife." David didn't follow her, he just sat there. My mom said he looked broken, so Ella walked out. She got banned from family gatherings. My mom told me I was welcome back anytime, that she believed me now. I cried on the phone. I said, "Mom, you have no idea how much that means." She apologized for not listening sooner. I forgave her, but I was still cautious. I said I needed time to rebuild trust. David called me the next day. His voice was hoarse. He said, "I'm sorry, I was so wrong. I guess I just thought she was telling the truth because I loved her, but she's been lying about everything." I asked him if he was going to leave her. He said, "I don't know, she's still my wife. But I can't be with someone who hurts my family." I told her I need space. He said Ella had been crying and apologizing, but he didn't believe her anymore. I told him I loved him and I was glad he was starting to see the truth. We agreed to meet for coffee next week. It felt like the first step back to being siblings. George handled it all with grace. He said he didn't hold a grudge against David, but he was relieved the truth came out. We postponed the wedding by 2 months to give everyone time to heal. My mom offered to help pay for flowers. My dad offered to walk me down the aisle again, even though I had already asked him. It was messy and imperfect, but it was my family. And Ella, she's still in the picture, but barely. She shows up to holidays sometimes, but my mom makes sure she sits at a separate table. She doesn't talk to me, I don't talk to her. David is still married to her, but he told me he's thinking about counseling. I hope he finds peace. But I also know I can't fix his marriage. I can only fix mine. Now let me give you the final update on the roommate situation. That hoodie I found in the donation bin, that wasn't the last I heard of Mike. A week after Sarah moved out, I got a call from a detective. My heart dropped. The detective said they were investigating a drug operation in the area and had picked up Mike on a possession with intent charge. They found texts on his phone about the apartment. The detective asked if I had ever seen any suspicious activity. I told them everything, the scale, the late-night visitors, the plastic bag. They thanked me and said I might need to testify if it went to trial. I said I would. Sarah found out. She called me crying. She said Mike was facing serious time, that she didn't know he was dealing, that she was stupid. I felt bad for her, but I also felt angry. I said, "Sarah, I told you, you chose him over our home. You let him use my stuff. You let him bring drugs into our place. I'm not going to lie for him." She hung up. A few days later, I got a text from an unknown number. It read, "You're gonna regret this." I didn't respond. I called the detective again. He said they'd increase patrols near my building. I also changed my locks again and got a peephole camera. I was scared, but I refused to let fear control me. The weirdest part. A week after that text, a package arrived at my door, no return address. Inside was a new hoodie exactly like the one Mike took, but brand new. There was a note, "Sorry for the trouble, I was an idiot, hope you're doing well, Mike." I don't know how he got my address, I don't know why he sent that. Maybe he felt guilty, maybe it was a setup, I threw it in the trash. My new roommate, the librarian, is great. We have a system: no guests after 10 p.m., no overnight stays without notice, no using each other's stuff. Simple, peaceful. I told her about the whole saga and she just said, "Dude, I'm so sorry." That's all I needed, so that's where I am now. My family is slowly healing, my home is safe. I'm learning that sometimes you have to cut people off, even family, even roommates, to protect the life you're building. It's not easy, but it's worth it. But let me go back and fill in some details I skipped, because the full story of Ella's lies is more twisted than I first realized. When my mom finally told me everything she had uncovered, I felt sick. Ella didn't just whisper rumors, she had a whole narrative. She told my aunt that George had once held her against a wall during their relationship. She said he threatened to kill himself if she left. She claimed he showed up at her job drunk and screaming. None of it had ever happened. My mom tracked down George's old roommate from back then, a guy named Marcus. Marcus said George was a mess, sure, but he was never violent. The worst thing George did was disappear for a weekend and come back apologetic. Marcus also said he remembered Ella, remembered her showing up unannounced, crying, trying to get George back after she had already moved on. She had a pattern. My mom told me that during that Thanksgiving dinner, the one where she called Ella out, she had brought a printed list of every lie. She had dates, times, names, she read them aloud. "On October 12th, you told your sister-in-law that George broke into your apartment. I have a text from your own mother saying you were home alone that night and nothing happened." Ella went pale. David sat there with his head in his hands. My mom said, "You have been tearing this family apart because you couldn't handle that he chose someone else. That's not love, Ella. That's obsession." I wasn't there, but I can picture it. My mom is a quiet woman, but when she snaps hard. After that dinner, my dad drove Ella home. David stayed at my parents' house. He cried on the couch. He said he didn't know who he married. My dad just sat next to him and said, "You need to decide what kind of man you want to be." A few days later, David came to my apartment with a bouquet of flowers, not for me, but for George. He handed them to him at the door and said, "I'm sorry for believing her. I should have trusted my sister. I should have trusted you." George took the flowers, looked at them, and then handed them back. "Keep them," he said. "Put them on your kitchen table and remember that the truth always comes out." David nodded. I hugged him. It was the first time I had seen him cry since we were kids. After that, Ella tried to apologize to me via text. She wrote, "I'm sorry for everything. I was jealous and insecure. Can we start over?" I didn't answer. I blocked her number. I didn't need that energy in my life. The wedding planning continued. George and I had a conversation about having children. He said he wanted to wait 2 more years, let his recovery settle, let us establish a home. I agreed. We set a date, May 15th at the Lake Chapel. My mom offered to make the cake. My dad offered to grill at the reception. It was small, maybe 40 people. Ella was not invited. David came alone. He sat in the front row and cried when I walked down the aisle. My dad whispered, "That's your brother. He's proud of you." I kissed my dad's cheek. George and I said our vows. It was simple and honest, no drama, just love. At the reception, my mom pulled me aside. She said, "Ella is in therapy now. David told me she's finally admitting she has a problem." I shrugged. "Good for her, but I'm done." My mom nodded. She didn't push. "Now let me go back to the roommate situation because there's one more thing I left out. Remember how Mike was using my razor? I didn't mention the worst part. A week after I moved out, actually after Sarah moved out and I stayed, I found a small bag of white powder under the bathroom sink. It was behind the cleaning supplies. I don't know how it got there. I don't know if it was Mike's or Sarah's or someone else's. I called the detective. He told me to leave it alone and he sent someone to collect it. That was the final straw for me. I had to move. The landlord let me break the lease without penalty because of the police involvement. I found a new place 2 blocks away. It's a studio, but it's mine. No roommates, no drama. I still think about Sarah sometimes. I saw her at a coffee shop last month. She looked tired. She waved. I waved back. She didn't come over. I hope she's okay. I hope she learned from this. But I can't carry her weight anymore, so that's the full story. My brother and I are rebuilding. George and I are married. My parents are proud of me. And Mike, I heard he took a plea deal. He's doing 18 months. I don't feel sorry for him. I feel relieved. Life is quiet now, and quiet is exactly what I needed. But before I could fully settle into that quiet, there was one more thing from the Ella saga that I hadn't shared. After Thanksgiving, my mom didn't stop at confronting her at the dinner. She decided to go nuclear in her own way. My mom is part of a big family group chat, aunts, uncles, cousins, the whole deal. Ella was in it too because she was married to David. My mom typed out a long message one night. She didn't ask me first, she just hit send. The message started with, "I need to clear something up about my daughter and George." And then she listed every lie Ella had told one by one. She attached screenshots of texts from Ella's own mother saying that the break-in story was bullshit. She attached a recording of a phone call where Ella's ex-roommate confirmed that George had never been violent. She ended with, "Ella, you are not welcome in our home until you get professional help and apologize to my daughter and George. This is not revenge, this is truth." I woke up to 47 notifications on my phone. My cousin texted me, "Wow, your mom is a legend." My aunt called me crying, saying she believed me. Another cousin said she had always thought George was nice. The group chat exploded. Ella didn't respond for a few hours. Then she sent one message, "I'm sorry you all hate me. I'll delete myself from this chat." And she left. David called me that night. His voice was shaky. "I didn't know she did all that," he said. "I mean, I knew she was upset, but I didn't know about the lies to everyone." I said, "You didn't want to know. You chose to believe her because it was easier." He was quiet for a long time, then he said, "You're right, I'm sorry." I told him I loved him, but that he had to figure out his own path. We hung up. A few days later, Ella showed up at my parents' house unannounced. My mom didn't let her in. She stood on the porch, crying, begging to talk. My dad called the police and told her to leave. She left. After that, David moved out. He stayed at a hotel for a week, then rented his own apartment. He started seeing a therapist. He told me he felt like he had been brainwashed. I said, "You weren't brainwashed, you were in love with a liar." He said, "Same thing." George and I kept planning our wedding. We picked out rings together. He chose a simple gold band. I chose a small diamond. We paid for everything ourselves. My mom offered to host the rehearsal dinner at her house. I said yes, but I told her, "No drama. If Ella shows up, I'm leaving." My mom said she won't. "I already told the security guard at the gate." I laughed. She was serious. The rehearsal dinner was beautiful. My dad made a toast. He said, "George, I watched you become a man. I'm proud to call you son." George cried. I cried. My brother David gave a speech too, short and honest. He said, "I messed up, but I'm glad my sister found someone who makes her happy. That's all that matters." We all hugged. It felt like a real family again. Now back to the roommate story. After I moved into my studio, I thought I was done with Mike and Sarah for good. But the law doesn't move that fast. 3 months after the arrest, I got a subpoena. I had to testify in Mike's trial. They charged him with possession with intent and possession of a controlled substance near a school. Our apartment was 2 blocks from an elementary school. That added extra time. I was terrified. I had never been in a courtroom. The detective called me the night before and said, "Just tell the truth, don't be nervous, he's not going to hurt you." I didn't sleep. The next morning, I put on the nicest blazer I had and took the bus to the courthouse. Sarah was there. She sat in the back row. She looked thin, pale, like she hadn't eaten in days. She nodded at me. I nodded back. I was called to the stand. The prosecutor asked me about the day I found the scale in the bag under the sink. I described it all: the plastic bag, the white powder, the smell. The defense attorney tried to make me look like I was exaggerating. He said, "Isn't it true you had a grudge against Mr. Ramirez because he used your shampoo?" I said, "No, I had a grudge because he brought drugs into my home and put me in danger." The prosecutor smiled. The defense attorney sat down. After my testimony, I stepped outside to get some air. Sarah followed me. She stood a few feet away, hands in her pockets. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know you don't want to hear it, but I'm sorry." I said, "I do want to hear it, but it doesn't change what happened." She started crying. "He told me he was selling weed to friends. I didn't know about the other stuff." I said, "You didn't want to know. You ignored every red flag." She nodded. "I'm in therapy now," she said. "I moved back with my mom." I said, "Good, I hope you get better." She reached out to hug me. I let her. It was brief. Then she walked away. Mike was convicted. He got 24 months. I felt a weight lift, not because I wanted him to suffer, but because it was over. I got a new hoodie from the detective as a thank you. He gave me a gift card to a clothing store. I bought a dark green one. It's soft. No one else has ever worn it, so that's the full truth. I have a life now that doesn't revolve around other people's chaos. I go to work, I come home, I cook dinner, I watch movies with George, we talk about our future, maybe kids, maybe a dog, maybe a house with a yard. It's simple, it's stable. And after everything that happened with Ella and Mike and Sarah, I value that more than anything. I still get a little jumpy when I see a hoodie in a donation bin, but time passes, you heal, you learn to trust again slowly. I'm not there yet, but I'm closer than I was, and that's enough for now. The night George proposed, I thought nothing could ruin it. I was wrong. It was a Thursday in early November, about a month after the whole Thanksgiving disaster with Ella. George had been acting weird all week, nervous, fidgety, checking his phone too much. I figured he was stressed about work. He'd taken on a new project at his construction job, managing a crew, and he was still going to therapy twice a week. I didn't push. He took me to this little Italian place downtown, the one with the red checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. We'd gone there on our third date back when I still had no idea he was Ella's ex. The owner, Marco, greeted us like old friends. George had called ahead and asked for the corner booth, the one by the window. I thought that was sweet, maybe a little romantic, but I didn't suspect anything. We ordered our usual chicken parm for him, spaghetti carbonara for me. George barely touched his food. He kept reaching for my hand across the table. I asked if he was sick. He said no, just happy. Then when the tiramisu came, he slid out of the booth and got down on one knee. The whole restaurant went quiet. I saw the ring, a simple diamond solitaire, exactly what I'd shown him on Pinterest months ago. He said, "I want to spend the rest of my life being the man you deserve. Will you marry me?" I started crying before I could even say yes. I said yes. Everyone clapped. Marco brought us free champagne. George put the ring on my finger and it fit perfectly. I thought, this is it. This is the moment my life starts being good. We called my parents that night. My mom screamed with joy. My dad got on the phone and said, if he hurts you, I'll bury him. He was joking, mostly. George's mom cried too. She'd been sober for 2 years and she said, you saved my son. I didn't feel like I saved anyone, I just loved him, but I took the compliment anyway. We posted the news on social media the next morning, a photo of our hands on the table, the ring catching the light. Caption, he asked, I said yes. I got hundreds of likes within an hour. Friends, cousins, coworkers, all supportive. Then around noon my phone buzzed with a text from David. Can you call me now? I knew something was wrong. David never texts, he calls. I stepped into the bathroom at work and dialed. He answered in a whisper. Ella saw the post. She's losing her mind. She's been crying for 2 hours. She keeps saying George was supposed to be hers, that you stole him, that you manipulated him into proposing. I felt my stomach drop. David, that's insane. They dated for 6 months 4 years ago. He didn't want to marry her then. He sighed. I know, but she's my wife and I have to deal with her. She's already texting mom. I didn't respond to that. I just said, I'm sorry you have to deal with this, but I'm not apologizing for being happy. He said, you shouldn't have to. Then he hung up. That afternoon, Ella started her campaign. She sent a long message to my mom. I saw it later when mom forwarded it to me. It was 4 paragraphs of accusations. She said George was a recovering drug addict who had lied to me, that I was too young to know what I was doing, that the proposal was a manipulation tactic to keep me from seeing the truth. She said I had been love-bombed and that George would go back to drugs as soon as we got married. She ended with, I'm not saying this to be cruel. I'm saying it because I care about Op and I don't want her to make the biggest mistake of her life. My mom called me furious. Who does she think she is? She's known George for 5 minutes. She doesn't know what he's been through. I said, she knows him as the guy who dumped her. That's all she sees. My mom said, we're not going to let her ruin your engagement. I'm talking to your brother. That evening, my parents went to David and Ella's apartment. I wasn't there, but I got the play-by-play from my dad. He said they sat on the couch and my mom asked Ella directly, what is your real issue here? Ella started crying again and said, he changed for her. He wouldn't change for me. It's not fair. My mom said, people change when they find the right person. You were not the right person for George and he was not the right person for you. You need to accept that and move on. Ella said, I can't. I love him. My dad told me he almost choked on his coffee when she said that. Love him. She's married to your brother, he said. My mom then laid down the law. You are not to contact George or my daughter directly. You are not to spread any more lies about them. And if you can't behave yourself at family functions, you won't be invited. Ella stood up and said, you can't dictate who I talk to. David is my husband. If you ban me, you ban him too. She looked at David, waiting for him to back her up. David didn't say a word. He just sat there staring at the floor. That was the moment everything changed. David didn't defend her. He didn't say, you can't ban my wife. He just sat there. I think that's when Ella realized she had lost control. The next day, David called me and said, I can't do this anymore. I told Ella she needs to go to therapy or I'm leaving. I said, what did she say? He said, she said I'm choosing you over her. I told her no, I'm choosing my sanity. He paused. I've been blind. She's been feeding me lies for 3 years about George, about you, about my own parents. I'm done. Ella didn't go to therapy. Instead, she started texting George. I found out because George showed me his phone. She sent him a voice memo, sobbing, saying she still loved him, that she never got over him, that he was making a huge mistake settling for me. George deleted it without listening to the whole thing. He said, I'm blocking her number. I don't want any part of this. But Ella wasn't done. She posted a status on Facebook, public, not private, saying that I was a homewrecker who had seduced her ex and then turned her husband against her. A mutual friend screenshotted it and sent it to my mom. My mom called a family meeting that weekend, aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, everyone except Ella. We gathered at my parents' house on Saturday morning. There were about 15 of us. My mom started by reading aloud one of Ella's early text messages to her, the one where she called me a thirsty little sister who had grabbed the first man who showed her attention. I felt my face burn. My cousin Jen yelled, that's disgusting. My aunt said, we need to do something. My dad spoke up. He said, I'm not going to pretend this is a normal family disagreement. This woman has been lying to all of us. She's caused enough pain. I'm not going to have her in my house anymore. My grandmother, who rarely says anything, nodded and said, she's broken, she needs help, but that doesn't mean we have to let her break us. The decision was unanimous. Ella would be banned from all family events, Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays, everything, until she apologized sincerely to me and George and until she got professional help. No exceptions. David was told, but he was allowed to attend without her. He said he understood. Ella blew up when David told her. She packed a bag and left for her mother's house for a week. David called me that night crying. I think my marriage is over, he said. I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt sorry for him. Part of me felt relieved. Said, you deserve someone who doesn't lie to you. He said, I know, I just wish I'd realized it sooner. 2 weeks later, Ella showed up at my parents' house one Tuesday evening unannounced. I was there helping my mom plan the Thanksgiving menu when the doorbell rang. My mom answered it, and there stood Ella, mascara-stained cheeks, holding a crumpled napkin like she'd been crying into it for hours. She said, I need to talk to her, please. My mom looked back at me over her shoulder. I nodded. Not because I wanted to, but because I knew if I didn't, this would never end. Ella walked into the living room and sat on the edge of the couch. She wouldn't look at me at first. She just picked at her nail polish and said, David left me. He went to a hotel 3 days ago. He said he can't be married to someone who lies. I didn't say anything. I let her talk. She said, I know I've been horrible. I know I said terrible things, but I swear I didn't think it would go this far. When I saw the ring, I snapped. I couldn't process that George was giving you what he wouldn't give me, and I know he didn't owe me anything. I know we only dated for 6 months. I made up a whole future in my head back then, and when he ended it, I never really let it go. I just buried it. I asked, did you ever love my brother? She looked at me then, and for the first time, she looked broken instead of angry. I love how he makes me feel. He's safe, he's stable, but I don't think I've ever loved anyone the way I convinced myself I loved George. I said, that's not fair to David. He deserves to be loved for who he is, not as a consolation prize. She started crying again. I know, I've been in therapy for 2 weeks. My mom made me go, and I've been told I need to apologize to you and George directly. So I'm here. I'm sorry for calling you a homewrecker. I'm sorry for lying to your family. I'm sorry for trying to ruin your engagement because I was bitter and jealous. I sat there for a long moment. The words felt real. They didn't sound rehearsed. My mom was standing in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, watching. I finally said, I appreciate the apology, but I don't trust you yet. Trust takes time to rebuild and you burned a lot of bridges. She nodded. I know, I'm not asking for trust. I'm asking for a chance to start proving myself, and I'll respect whatever boundaries you and your family set. I know I've lost the right to demand anything. I told her I would talk to George and let him decide how he wanted to handle things. She thanked me and left without trying to hug me or push for more. That night, George and I talked for 2 hours on the phone. He was quiet for a long time when I told him about the apology. Then he said, I believe people can change. I have to believe that. But I also believe in protecting ourselves. I'm okay with her being at family events as long as she never tries to contact me directly, and if she ever says one thing about you, I'm done. I relayed that to David the next day. He had moved back into the apartment but was sleeping in the guest room. He said, she's going to keep going to therapy. We're going to try couples counseling, but I don't know if we're going to make it. I told him I was proud of him for setting boundaries. He laughed bitterly. I set them 4 years too late. Thanksgiving came and went. Ella wasn't invited. My mom stuck to her word. David came alone and sat with my dad watching football. He looked tired, but he also looked lighter. He laughed at a joke my uncle made, and I realized I hadn't heard him laugh genuinely in years. George and I spent Christmas with his family. His mom gave me a bracelet with his birthstone. She said, you're the best thing that ever happened to him. I wore it every day after that. But that wasn't the only drama simmering in my life around that time. Something else had been brewing with my living situation, and it was about to explode in a completely different direction. The shower situation started small. I thought I was overreacting at first. My roommate had been dating Jake for about 6 months and he was over constantly. Fine, I get it, new relationship energy. But the first time I noticed my shampoo bottle was significantly emptier than it should have been, I figured maybe I just used more than I thought. The second time I marked the level with a piece of tape. 2 days later the tape was there but the product was below it. I started hiding my stuff in my room. Razor, deodorant, face wash, conditioner, everything went into a little caddy that I carried to the bathroom and back like I was living in a dorm again. I thought that would solve the problem. But then I started hearing the shower run at 2 a.m., 4 a.m., 6 a.m. multiple times a day. I finally brought it up to my roommate Sarah about 3 weeks in. I said, hey, Jake showers a lot, like a lot, and I think he's been using my stuff even after I moved it. She rolled her eyes and said, he probably didn't realize. I'll tell him to stop. Nothing changed. A week later, I approached her again. I'm really not comfortable with him showering here so much. He doesn't live here, he doesn't pay rent, and he keeps using my toiletries even after I asked him to stop. If he bought his own stuff and kept it in the bathroom, I'd feel different, but he doesn't. She got defensive. What am I supposed to do? Time his showers. He's my boyfriend. He stays here. That's what couples do. I said, he stays here 7 nights a week. That's not visiting, that's living here. And I didn't sign up for a third roommate. She huffed and said she would talk to him, but her tone was dismissive. That night, I heard them whispering in her room. Then Jake came out and knocked on my door. He was friendly, smiling, holding a six-pack of beer like we were about to become best friends. Hey, I hear there's been some tension about the shower thing. My bad, I'll buy my own stuff, okay, no hard feelings. I said, it's not just the stuff, it's the frequency. You're showering 2-3 times a day. That's a lot of water and electricity that I'm paying half for. His smile tightened. I just like to be clean. Is that a crime? I said, no, but it's excessive, and you're not on the lease. He set the beer down on my desk without asking. Look, I'll buy my own stuff. I'll try to keep the showers shorter, but I'm not going to stop staying over because you're uncomfortable. Sarah wants me here, that's what matters. I let it go. I didn't want to escalate, but I started noticing other things. Jake would disappear for hours in the middle of the day. He got phone calls at odd hours and would step outside to take them. He always had cash but never a credit card. And he had this nervous energy, like he was always waiting for something bad to happen. Then one afternoon, I came home early from work because I felt sick. I walked into the bathroom and found Jake standing at the sink shirtless holding a small baggie of white powder. He spun around so fast he knocked over my toothbrush. Shit, you scared me. I was just, organizing my stuff. I said, that's not organizing, that's drugs. He laughed, but it was hollow. It's just a little coke, it's not a big deal, everyone does it. I said, not in my apartment, get out now. He grabbed his shirt and walked past me, muttering under his breath. I heard him say, bitch. I called Sarah immediately. She said, you kicked him out over a little coke, you don't even know if that's what it was. I said, it was in a baggie, he was about to do it in our bathroom, I'm not comfortable having a drug user in my home. She said, you're overreacting, he's not an addict, he just does it socially. At 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, alone in my bathroom, that's not social. She didn't speak to me for 3 days. Jake stopped coming over. I thought it was over. But then Sarah came to me one evening and said, Jake told me the real reason you kicked him out. You were flirting with him and when he didn't respond, you made up the drug thing. I stared at her. What? No, that's insane. I have a fiancé. I've never flirted with Jake. He's the one who was doing coke in our bathroom. She crossed her arms. I believe him. He has no reason to lie. I said, he has every reason to lie. He got caught with drugs and kicked out. This is damage control. She shook her head. I want you to move out. I can't live with someone who lies about my boyfriend. I said, he has every reason to lie. He got caught with drugs and kicked out. This is damage control. She shook her head. I want you to move out. I can't live with someone who lies about my boyfriend. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just said, fine, I'll start looking for a new place tomorrow. I went to my room and closed the door. My hands were shaking. I called my fiancé George and told him everything. He said, you're not moving out. You're not the one who did anything wrong. Stay there. I'll come over tomorrow and we'll figure it out. I texted Sarah later that night. I'm not leaving until the lease is up. You can't kick me out because you don't like what I saw. If Jake comes back, I'm calling the landlord. She didn't reply. The next few days were tense. We barely spoke. I kept everything locked in my room. I stopped using the bathroom when I heard him in there. One morning I came out to find the front door wide open. Nothing was stolen, but I felt sick. I texted Sarah, did you leave the door open? She said, Jake was just getting something from his car. On Thursday, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to. A woman's voice said, is this Sarah's roommate? I said, yes, who is this? She said, I'm Jake's sister. I've been trying to warn her for months. He's dealing. He's been cut off by everyone in our family. He stole from my mom's purse last week. I know he's been staying at your place. Please be careful. I asked, why are you telling me this? She said, because I'm scared he's going to do something stupid and I don't want someone else to get hurt. I thanked her and hung up. I sat on my bed for 10 minutes, then I called Sarah into the living room. I told her what Jake's sister said. She stared at me. You're lying, you're making that up. I handed her my phone. Call her back, that's the number. She didn't call, she just stared at the screen. Then she said, even if that's true, he's not a drug dealer, he just parties sometimes. I said, his own sister called me to warn me, think about that. She didn't say anything. She went to her room and shut the door. 2 days later, I came home to find the bathroom door splintered. The lock was broken. My shampoo bottles were on the floor, half empty. There was a message written in shaving cream on the mirror, mind your business. I called the police. They came, took photos, asked questions. Sarah wasn't home. I texted her, your boyfriend broke into my bathroom and vandalized it. I filed a police report. She replied, you're crazy. But the next morning, I got a long text from her. Jake's sister called me again. She told me everything. He's been dealing for 2 years. He got arrested last night for possession with intent. I'm so sorry. I didn't believe you. I was so stupid. I didn't respond for a few hours. Then I said, I need you to pay for the door. And I need you to acknowledge what you did. She sent the money that afternoon. She cried when I got home. She said, I'm so sorry. I thought you were trying to ruin my relationship because you were jealous. I didn't see what was right in front of me. I hugged her. I wasn't ready to forgive, but I understood. We both had some healing to do. We finished the lease quietly. She moved out first into a new place alone. I stayed and found a new roommate through a friend. Jake never came back. I heard he got probation and moved in with his mom. And George, he bought me a new set of shampoo and conditioner. No more hiding your stuff, he said. You deserve to feel safe in your own home. I did, finally. So that's my story, 2 dramas that taught me the same lesson. Sometimes the people closest to you will choose the wrong person over you, but that doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means they're not ready to see the truth yet. I'm getting married next spring. David and Ella are still figuring things out, but they're in therapy. Sarah and I grab coffee once a month. And I never, ever share a bathroom with someone else's boyfriend again.